Welcome back to our deep dive into studio transmitter link technologies. So far, we've been talking all about the traditional world of RF. But today we're looking at a company that basically threw out the entire playbook. We are talking about Barracks, a true pioneer who came at this whole STL problem from a completely different angle, not as radio engineers, but as networking pros from the world of telecommunications. And just a quick heads up, this is part 3 of our big 10-part tutorial. So if you're just jumping in, we're breaking down all the major tech and the key players that define how we get audio from the studio to the transmitter. So here's what we've got on tap today. We're going to start with what makes Barracks' philosophy so different. Then we'll peek under the hood at their in-streamer and X-streamer system. After that, we'll get into the huge advantages of going pure IP. But we're also going to get real about the risks that come with it. And finally, we'll put IP and RF in a head-to-head matchup to see where each one really comes out on top. All right, so to really get Barracks, you've got to understand their DNA. They didn't come from a background of building bigger antennas or more powerful transmitters. Nope, their world was data networks, routers, switches, the plumbing of the internet. And that background shaped absolutely everything about how they approached moving broadcast audio. This quote right here, it's the key to the whole thing. See, they weren't trying to make a better radio link. They looked at the problem and said, wait a minute, we already have this massive global network designed to move data packets from point A to point B. Why don't we just use that? It was a totally different way of thinking. So that's the big idea. But how did they actually turn that networking philosophy into hardware that a broadcaster could plug in and use? Well, let's check out the heart of their solution, the in-streamer and X-streamer platform. And this picture just says it all, doesn't it? We're not talking about some kind of exotic, specialized RF gear here. We're talking about standard Ethernet cables, IP addresses, and network protocols. You know, the exact same stuff that connects your computer at the office to the internet right now. It's technology we're all familiar with. The whole setup is just beautifully simple. It's basically a two-box solution. At your studio, you've got the in-streamer. It grabs your program audio, chops it up into data packets, and shoots them out over the network. Then, way over at your transmitter site, the X-streamer is waiting to catch those packets, put them back together, and turn them back into perfect audio. Simple as that. Now, if you look a little closer, you'll see these aren't just off-the-shelf computer parts. They're purpose-built for the tough world of broadcasting. We're talking industrial-grade, fanless boxes, which is huge because no moving parts means way fewer points of failure. And critically, they don't run on Windows or some other PC operating system, so you get to dodge a whole universe of viruses, endless updates, and crashes. Plus, they give you tons of choices for audio codecs and use standard network protocols, which means they play nice with all your other IT gear. So this all sounds slick, right? But it begs the question, why on earth would a broadcaster, someone who lives and dies by control and reliability, give up their own private radio link for a system that rides on the public internet? Well, there are two massive advantages. The first reason, and let's be honest, usually the most convincing one, is money. Plain and simple. The cost to get into a pure IP SDL is just dramatically lower than a traditional RF setup. I mean, let's just break it down. Your upfront cost for the hardware, way lower. The whole expensive, headache-inducing process of getting frequency licenses, gone. You don't have to buy, build, or lease tower space. You don't need antennas, and for a lot of stations, you can just piggyback on the high-speed internet connection you're probably already paying for. The savings are huge. But it's not just about the money. The IP approach gives you a kind of superpower, the ability to set up a studio or a transmitter pretty much anywhere you want, especially in places where a radio link would be completely impossible. Just think about it for a second. An RF link needs a perfectly clear, unobstructed line of sight. But an IP link, it couldn't care less. As long as you can get an internet connection, I'm talking fiber, cable, 5G cellular, a wireless ISP, whatever, you can build a link. This is an absolute game changer for a studio buried on the 40th floor of a skyscraper or a transmitter site tucked away behind a mountain range. Okay, and you knew there was a but coming, right? All of that incredible flexibility, all of those cost savings, they don't come for free. When you choose to go down the IP road, you are making a very significant trade-off, and you absolutely have to understand the risks you're taking on. The best way to wrap your head around the fundamental risk of an IP STL is to ask this one simple question. Because when you use the internet for your broadcast, you're a guest. You're just a visitor on someone else's network. You don't own the road your audio is traveling on. And this right here is the perfect analogy. A traditional RF link is like having your own private, freshly paved, multi-lane highway straight from your studio to your transmitter. You control everything. An IP link? That's like merging out of the public interstate at 5 p.m. on a Friday. It can get you almost anywhere, sure, but you're sharing it with millions of other people, and you're totally at the mercy of traffic jams, accidents, and construction detours that are 100% outside of your control. So what's the bottom line here? It's that your station's on-air reliability is now directly chained to the performance of your internet service provider. If their network goes down, you go off the air. If a backhoe cuts their fiber line, you go off the air. You've essentially handed over a critical piece of your broadcast chain to a third party. The other big risk is performance. See, the public internet is what's called a best effort network. It doesn't guarantee your audio packets will arrive on time, or in order, or even arrive at all. It just tries its best. This creates things like latency and jitter. And when the network gets clogged up with traffic, packets get dropped. And you hear that as glitches and dropouts in your audio. And yeah, the barracks boxes have great buffering to help smooth that out, but even the world's best buffer can't fix a fundamentally flaky internet connection. Okay, so let's put these two philosophies side by side. This is really where the choice between the absolute control of RF and the incredible flexibility of IP becomes crystal clear. This table really boils the whole debate down, doesn't it? With RF, the private road, you have total absolute control over your path. But it comes with a high price tag up front, needs specialized RF engineers, and you're limited by geography. With IP, the public highway, you give up all that control and depend on your ISP. But in return, you get amazing flexibility, super low startup costs, and the skills you need are standard IT skills, which are frankly a lot easier to find these days. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one question. And there is no single right answer here. The choice depends entirely on your budget, your staff, your geography, and maybe most importantly, your tolerance for risk. So you have to ask yourself, are you a private road owner who needs that absolute control no matter the cost? Or are you a public highway traveler who values flexibility and efficiency above everything else? That's the real decision at the very heart of the Barracks IP approach.